Shun Jinan came to the minister's mansion to call off our engagement, and shortly afterward, asked to marry my illegitimate younger sister. From then on, I became the laughingstock of the entire capital. To ensure my illegitimate sister could marry Shun Jinan, my father declared to the public that I had lost my wits. Everyone knew I was a discarded child, and it was widely believed I wouldn't live to see the next spring. Little did they know. I held an ace up my sleeve to turn the tables against the odds. I sneaked into Prince Su's mansion and found Prince Su Chi Yuan, known throughout the land as the living Yama. Tugging at his sleeve, I coquettishly asked, "Will you still marry me?" At noon the next day, an imperial edict bestowing the marriage arrived. I knew this was his answer. I was the only legitimate daughter of the minister's mansion, when my father married my mother. He had just placed third in the imperial examination that year, a Tanhua. My mother was the beloved daughter of the general's mansion at the time. She had fallen in love with my father at first sight. General Lin, my maternal grandfather, had only my mother as his child and doted on her excessively. He thus betrothed my mother to my father. After their marriage, my father's official career flourished unimpeded, eventually rising to the position of minister. In the second year after my father became minister, my maternal grandfather and 3 maternal uncles all fell in battle on the frontier. At that time, I was just 7 years old. Before the spirit tablets of my grandfather and uncles could be brought back to the capital, my father hastily brought home his childhood sweetheart, his long-term mistress. It was then that my mother learned the truth. My father had been keeping a concubine outside the mansion all along. What's more, the concubine had already given birth to a son and a daughter. With my grandfather dead, my mother knew she had lost her last source of support. Meanwhile, my father was now a powerful minister. On one side was the general's mansion, left without a leader, on the other, the newly promoted minister. It was clear at a glance which side would hold more power in the future. Thus, my father brought Madame Kui into the minister's mansion without informing my mother. The following 2 years passed relatively peacefully. My father relied on the emperor's sympathy for my mother, now the sole survivor of the Lin clan, to firmly establish his foothold in the capital. By the time people's attention had gradually shifted from the Lin general's mansion to the rising Shun general's mansion, my father sent my mother and me, then only 10 years old, to Putti Temple, to the outside world. My father claimed that my mother had voluntarily left home to practice Buddhism and pray for the family's blessings. As for me, Song Yuntang, I had accompanied her out of deep longing to take care of her. My betrothal to Shun Jinan was personally arranged by the Emperor and General Shun when I was 13. Legend had it that General Shun had studied under my maternal grandfather, learning that I was my grandfather's only blood descendant. He begged the Emperor to make the marriage happen. The legitimate daughter of the minister's mansion and the legitimate son of the general's mansion, their union was hailed as a perfect match. When I received the imperial edict, Qi Yuan was accompanying me by the lake at the foot of the mountain, skipping stones. Qi Yuan was the son of noble consort Yi in the palace. Noble consort Yi had died in childbirth after giving birth to him. It was said that noble consort Yi had been the emperor's great love. They had been affectionate even before the emperor ascended the throne. After her death, the empress dowager raised Qi Yuan, fearing for his safety before her own passing. The Empress Dowager sent Qi Yuan to the temple to keep him away from the power struggles in the palace. At that time, I was 10, and Qi Yuan was 13. After returning to the temple, I knelt before my mother with Qi Yuan and said, "Mother, I do not wish to marry Shun Jinan." My mother said nothing. She looked at Qi Yuan and smiled. "Third prince, please return first. I have something to say to Tanga alone." After Qi Yuan left, my mother spoke indifferently. "You are already 13, your wedding is only 2 years away. It is time for you to return to the minister's mansion to learn proper etiquette." Before I could respond, she continued, "Tanga, I can see Qi Yuan's affection for you. But this kind of affection is not something you can afford now. The imperial edict has been issued, do not speak of this again. You should know Qi Yuan's temperament, he would definitely defy the edict alongside you. But we mother and daughter are no longer what we once were. What do we have to fight against the emperor's order? If you do not wish for him to end up like us, with no future ahead, leave for the minister's mansion tomorrow. Spend the next few years learning etiquette and how to be a proper mistress of a household. With that, my mother turned and went back into her room. I watched as the sun set behind the mountains, suddenly understanding what it meant to be powerless. I did not meet Qi Yuan to bid him farewell. Instead, I wrote him a letter and asked my mother to pass it on. I never knew what else my mother said to him. All I knew was that after that day, I returned to the minister's mansion. And he went back to the palace. Life back at the minister's mansion was not easy. Madame Kui held absolute power there, constantly scheming petty troubles for me. The servants, too, were snobbish, never showing me more than superficial respect. Madame Kui hired a nanny to teach me etiquette, yet deliberately spread rumors that I was ill-mannered and disrespectful to my elders. She brought in teachers to instruct me in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, but told others that I was untalented and slow to learn. 2 years passed in this way, and by then, the political landscape of the capital had completely changed. Rumors spread that the third prince, who had been raised outside the palace for so long, had suddenly returned 2 years earlier. In just 2 years, he had been conferred the title of Prince Su. Known for his decisive and ruthless ways, he punished corrupt officials without mercy. The black armored army under his command struck fear into the hearts of all. He could even raid noble mansions without the emperor's explicit order. Today, he was known as the living Yama of the capital. Another sensational rumor centered on the 2 young ladies of the minister's mansion. One was the legitimate daughter, Song Yuntang, said to be incompetent in poetry and literature. With only her looks to her name, she was accused of being disrespectful to elders, foolish, ignorant, timid, and unfit for refined company. Lacking all proper etiquette, her illegitimate sister, Song Yunqing, who was the same age, was praised as talented, beautiful, and virtuous, renowned throughout the capital. The two had reached marriageable age in the same year, yet they were as different as heaven and earth. Although birth determines one's status, hard work in later life truly cannot be underestimated. Indeed, what does it matter if one is legitimate or illegitimate? This illegitimate daughter is far superior to the legitimate one. Most people paid little attention to the gossip of commoners, but as the rumors grew louder, and with Madame Kui acting as the de facto mistress of the minister's mansion, even the noble families of the capital began to take notice. It seemed that the illegitimate daughter of the minister's mansion was destined to be more honored than the legitimate one. Over those 2 years, General Shun had also achieved numerous military exploits, and the general's mansion had grown increasingly prominent. Shun Jinan, following in his father's footsteps, had also distinguished himself in battles alongside the army. The emperor praised him as the future hope of the nation's military. Against this backdrop, everyone watched with bated breath to see how the Shun and Song families would handle the marriage agreement. Nearly everyone assumed the Shun family would want to call off the engagement. To everyone's surprise, on the day of my coming-of-age ceremony, General Shun, his wife, Shun Jinan, and a procession of betrothal gifts arrived at the minister's mansion. Yuntang, you've grown into such a fine young woman. Lady Shun smiled, exchanging pleasantries with me. Her words were warm and kind, yet for some reason, I detected hostility in her eyes. Lady Shun, I replied with a slight curtsy. After 2 years of training, I was already adept at handling such social interactions. Once the coming-of-age ceremony was over, my father summoned me to his study. It was the first time he had met with me alone since I had returned to the mansion 2 years earlier. He sat behind his desk. When he saw me enter, he said, "Yuntang, the Shun family's intention is that since the year is nearly over, we will begin preparing for your wedding to Jinan after the spring. The wedding date is set for the 9th month of next year." I looked at my father and smiled faintly. Yes, daughter will obey father's arrangements. My father studied me for a moment and asked, "Today, when the Shun family was here, did Shun Jinan speak to you privately?" Meeting his scrutinizing gaze, I replied calmly, "No, he did not." Upon hearing this, my father immediately threw a teacup at my feet, shouting angrily, "You know your own lack of talent. And you must have heard the rumors outside. If this marriage falls through, What kind of husband do you think you can find? You must hold on to this marriage, make Shinjinan fall in love with you. I am only thinking of your future." Looking at him, I said, "Is father truly thinking of my future? Or is it that the Shun family is now at the height of their power, and you wish to forge an alliance with them through me?" At this, he laughed coldly. "You and your mother should have been discarded long ago. It is only because the Shun family remembers the kindness of your grandfather that they agreed to this marriage. This is the only thing you can do for our minister's mansion now. It is good that you understand the interests at stake. Now you should focus on ensuring you smoothly enter the Shun family's gate." He stared at me for a moment before adding, "You've grown into a woman now, and you look more and more like your mother. But your mother was talented, virtuous, and beautiful in her youth. It seems those years in the temple truly ruined you. Now, this face of yours is all you have going for you. But father, do you really think my mother and I learned nothing during those years in the temple?" Yet I did not say these words aloud. That night, when I returned to my room, I was startled to see an unfamiliar box on my table. Opening it, I found a jade hairpin inside. I recognized it immediately. It was a relic of Qi Yuan's mother. He had told me once that it was the only thing his mother had left him, and according to the Empress Dowager, it was meant for his future wife. I took the hairpin and pinned it in my hair, gazing at the moonlight outside the window. I missed him so much. Qi Yuan. We hadn't seen each other in 2 years. After my coming-of-age ceremony, the rumors in the capital changed. People began saying that the legitimate daughter of the minister's mansion was constantly trailing behind the young general of the Shun family, but Shun Jinan wanted nothing to do with her. After Song Yunqing's coming-of-age ceremony, suitors flocked to the minister's mansion, yet the Song family never accepted any proposal. I knew these rumors were all spread by Madame Kui, her way of boosting her daughter's value. After hearing such gossip for so many years, I had no desire to respond. My top priority at that time was indeed to marry Shinjinan. Only by marrying him could I break the current deadlock where my mother and I were at the mercy of the minister's mansion. After the new year, the minister's mansion began making systematic preparations for my wedding. As the Lantern Festival approached, the streets grew increasingly lively. In the days that followed, I sent ginseng soup I had made myself to Shinjinan every day. Though I only caught a glimpse of him occasionally, I could tell he was avoiding me. But Lady Shin, Liu She, would invite me to stay for tea and chat every day. She always made excuses for Shinjinan, saying he was too busy with military affairs to be distracted. The more I visited, the more I could detect her subtle warnings during our conversations. Essentially, she also thought I was unworthy of Shinjinan. But since the marriage was already decided, she had accepted it. However, she expected me to be more diligent. Even if I could not compare to my sister, the pearl of the capital, I should at least be presentable. Every time I agreed obediently, I could see the disappointment in her eyes. Rumors spread more and more that I was deeply infatuated with Shinjinan. On the Lantern Festival, presumably pressured by General Shun, Shinjinan invited me to stroll the streets. Knowing he was unwilling, I stopped at a tea house and said to him, "Young General Shun, you may go enjoy yourself alone. I'm a little tired and want to go in for a cup of tea. Let's meet here in an hour." Upon hearing this, Shinjinan glanced at me, nodded as if in gratitude, and then disappeared into the crowd. I smiled as I watched his retreating figure. He really couldn't bear to spend an extra moment with me. The days ahead would surely be even harder. I turned and entered the tea house, asking for a private room where I could drink tea and listen to the opera alone. Suddenly, someone climbed through the window and sat down across from me. It was Qi Yuan. "TSK, your fiancé left you high and dry." Unlike the cold-blooded monster described in rumors, Qi Yuan was quite casual in front of me. "If you're here to laugh at me, you can leave now, Qi Yuan," I said solemnly, looking into his eyes. "Yun Tang, you should understand my feelings from the gift I sent on your coming-of-age ceremony. Will you?" Qi Yuan said, his gaze fixed on mine. "Third prince. I am already betrothed. Do not speak of this again. You should have known my feelings when I left you without a word back then." I interrupted him. Looking away, Qi Yuan fell silent, and the air in the room suddenly became so heavy it was suffocating. We sat quietly for a while before he spoke. "Miss Song, Do not regret this. With that, he climbed back out the window. I stared at the teacup Qi Yuan had drunk from and wiped away my tears. Although Qi Yuan was now Prince Su, the second prince, the queen's son, was also determined to claim the crown prince's position. If Qi Yuan offended the Shen family because of me, his situation would be unimaginable. An hour later, I went downstairs to wait for Shen Jinan, only to accidentally see him guessing lantern riddles with my illegitimate sister at a stall. They looked deeply affectionate, as if they had been secretly involved for some time. Perhaps my gaze was too intense. Shen Jinan looked in my direction and froze on the spot. My sister, Song Yunqing, also saw me. Seeing that neither of them intended to come over, I turned back to the tea house. Less than a moment later, Shen Jinan appeared. I poured him a cup of tea, but he said nothing. I sipped my tea and stared out the window, waiting for him to speak. After about a quarter of an hour, he finally said slowly, "Song Yuntang, I love Yunqing." I nodded, looked at him, and smiled, and then, young General Shen, unprepared for my calmness, Shen Jinan was lost for words. I had to speak again. "The marriage agreement has been set by the emperor. I'm afraid even you, young general, cannot change it. Since that's the case, I hope you understand what you're doing." He seemed surprised by my attitude, so different from the foolish and timid girl in the rumors. "It's all my fault for falling in love with Yunqing. She did nothing wrong. Do not take revenge on her." Shen Jinan said to me, "Nothing wrong. Did she not know we were betrothed? It takes two to tango, young general. Of course I won't take revenge on her. An illegitimate sister is no threat to me at all." But even so, the young, prestigious general persisted, "Do not threaten me with the imperial betrothal. Even though your grandfather showed great kindness to my family, I will never marry a woman as cunning and sharp-tongued as you." I smiled at Shen Jinan and said, "If you don't want me to expose your affair, young General Shen, you'd better marry me obediently. I don't think you want to embarrass everyone." After saying this, I glanced at him, stood up, and left the tea house to return to the mansion. Shen Jinan's face darkened instantly. As a young man who had achieved fame early, he was arrogant and unruly. For me to speak of his beloved woman in such a way made him want to kill me on the spot. But I could tell that General Shen was the one in charge of the Shen family, and Shen Jinan did not dare to defy his father. However, I miscalculated this time. The next day, I was painting plum blossoms in my room when my maid, Pei Yu, suddenly burst in. "Miss, that young general from the Shen family is here." "He's here too." I frowned and interrupted her. "Pei Yu, I told you not to come in without permission when my door is closed." Pei Yu replied anxiously, "Miss, Shen Jinan is here to call off the engagement." When I followed Pei Yu to the main hall, General Shen and my father were sitting in the upper seats. Shen Jinan was kneeling on the ground, holding the marriage contract in his hand. I saluted my father and General Shen but said nothing. General Shen looked at me and said, "Tanga, I'm sorry for you, for raising such a disobedient son. Rest assured, I will not let this engagement be annulled." On the way here, Pei Yu had told me that Shen Jinan had knelt at the gate of the minister's mansion, attracting a crowd of onlookers. The matter had escalated, forcing General Shen to rush over. "Uncle, may I ask why young General Shen is so insistent on calling off the engagement?" I said, looking at Shen Jinan. "Yes, calling off the engagement for no reason. With my reputation already in tatters, my future would be ruined." Unprepared for my question, Shen Jinan said, "Your reputation precedes you. I do not wish to marry a useless woman." "Shut up, you unfilial son." Tanga, General Shen was so angry he almost rushed over to slap Shen Jinan, but he stopped and looked at me instead. "Uncle Shen, if young General Shen does not like me, I'm afraid I will not be happy in the future either." I said with a faint smile, "Shen Jinan, you only think about calling off the engagement. Have you ever considered me?" I turned to Shen Jinan and asked, "In today's society, a woman whose engagement is broken is no different from an abandoned wife, and with the reason you've given, how am I supposed to survive in the future?" I admire the Shen family. I thought young General Shen was an upright man. Why won't you tell the truth about why you want to call off the engagement? My rapid-fire questions left Shen Jinan tongue-tied. It sounds like there's more to this than meets the eye. Tanga, General Shun asked. I looked at General Shun, then knelt before him and my father, saying, "Daughter is foolish. I only thought that if I treated young General Shun well, we could live in harmony, but yesterday, I saw Shinjinan and my second sister, Yunqing, being affectionate. I think this is the real reason young General Shun wants to call off the engagement. I would not let them get away with ruining my reputation and cutting off my future by bringing this matter into the open. The world would only see Shinjinan as an ungrateful man who broke his promise, and the minister's mansion's illegitimate daughter would be nothing more than a villain who stole her own sister's fiancé, not the pearl of the capital, but someone without the slightest sense of shame." Before General Shun could speak, my father slapped me across the face, shouting, "Presumptuous, who gave you the right to slander your sister and Jinan like this?" I looked at my father. In that moment, I finally realized deeply that my illegitimate sister's place in my father's heart was something I could never hope to match. Is it slander? Young General Shun is upright. Shouldn't he give Yunqing a proper status now that things have come to this? I knelt on the ground, my gaze fixed firmly on Shinjinan. Before Shinjinan could react, I turned to my father and General Shun and said, "Young General Shun and my second sister are deeply in love. Why not fulfill this couple?" General Shun immediately stepped forward to help me up, saying, "Tanga, it's my unfilial son who wronged you. I've already lost face today. But rest assured, I will give you an explanation." I said nothing. Instead, I looked at Shinjinan and said, "Let's settle this matter quickly. But your original reason is invalid. You and my second sister were the ones who fell in love and betrayed me first. Do not shift the blame onto me. Let's finalize this quickly to avoid further complications." Shinjinan knelt before General Shun and said, "Father, Yunqing and I are truly in love. Please allow me to marry Miss Song II. When my father heard this, he immediately pulled General Shun aside and said, "My daughter Yunqing's beauty and talent are unparalleled in the entire capital. Jinan and my daughter are a perfect match. Why not?" General Shun said, "Since this is the case, forcing my son and Tanga to marry will bring happiness to no one. Let's part with dignity. The rest is for Minister Song to clean up." He then glanced at his kneeling son and stormed off with a flick of his sleeves, and I knew General Shun had acquiesced. Yes, the blood of his benefactor was ultimately no match for his own biological son. Even though he knew Shinjinan had betrayed me, he still wanted to save face for him. In less than half a day, rumors spread throughout the city that I had been abandoned because I had lost my wits. Moreover, Shinjinan had knelt at my mansion in public to beg for the marriage of my illegitimate sister, Song Yunqing, in the name of harmony between the Shun and Song families. In an instant, I became the laughingstock of the entire capital. That night, my father summoned me to his study once again. When he saw me enter, he said, "Yun Tang, I called you here to say a few words." I looked at my father and said, "Father, please speak." My father said solemnly, "Now that things have come to this, there is no longer any possibility between you and Jinan. You simply lacked the ability to win Jinan's heart. Our family's marriage alliance with the Shun family must be maintained. Tomorrow, I will go to the palace with General Shun to betroth your sister to Shinjinan." I looked at my father and said, "If that's the case, so be it, since I am not at fault." "Father," before I could finish speaking, my father interrupted me, "We must form an alliance with the Shun family, but it must be done grandly and smoothly. Do not blame me for speaking harshly. You are no longer useful to the minister's mansion. A woman whose engagement has been broken will never find a good match." I remained silent as my father continued, "Madam Kui and I have discussed it. We will claim that you suddenly lost your wits due to an illness a few days ago. To facilitate the union between the Shun and Song families, we will marry your sister instead. This way, we not only preserve your sister's reputation and give the Shun family a way out, but also fully protect the reputations of both the minister's mansion and the general's mansion. In a few days, I will send you back to your mother's side." I let out a bitter laugh. "Father, when you were plotting all this, did you ever consider me? Life is not easy for a woman, especially in my current situation. You know how Madam Kui has treated me these past 2 years, and you know what the rumors say. We are both your daughters. Are you really going to throw me to the wolves?" Unable to maintain his pretense any longer, my father snapped angrily, "You and your mother have long since lost your value. I let you both live comfortably, what more do you want? This matter is settled. You'd better not do anything foolish, otherwise, I will not hesitate to sever all father-daughter ties." I looked at the man in front of me and sneered, "Do you really think you'll let me leave the minister's mansion alive to return to my mother?" Caught off guard by my words, he was left speechless. Yes, now that things had come to this, my continued existence would be a ticking time bomb that could ruin Song Yunqing's reputation at any moment. He ordered his men to escort me back to my room, placing me under strict guard with no permission to go out. When I returned to my room, I carefully planned my next move. I was not foolish. Long before I returned to the minister's mansion, my mother had warned me of the worst-case scenario. I could not afford to be discouraged or slack off, otherwise I would be signing my own death warrant. Once I was labeled as insane and trapped in this mansion, I would not live to see the next spring. With a stepmother who wanted me dead and a cold-blooded father, there was no hope in sight. I could not die. Under the cover of night, I slipped out of the minister's mansion. As I climbed over the wall of Prince Su's mansion, I couldn't help but think, the security here is laughably lax. Assassinating Qi Yuan would be child's play for anyone. I groped my way forward until I spotted a brightly lit study. I thought to myself, Qi Yuan is truly a workaholic. Just as I was figuring out how to push the door open, a voice came from inside. "Come in, you've been skulking around all this time." That was when I realized Qi Yuan must have known I was here from the moment I scaled the mansion wall. I carefully opened the door and saw Qi Yuan, dressed in white silk, carving a peachwood comb. I walked over to him and stood across his desk, saying nothing. He glanced up at me and asked, "How did you manage to sneak out? With all the commotion at the minister's mansion today, it can't have been easy." I smiled and replied, "Maybe I played the obedient girl too well these past 2 years. The guards never thought I'd dare to run away, so they weren't watching me closely. Slipping out was a piece of cake." "Sit," he said, gesturing to the spot beside him. "Once upon a time, we would sit side by side like this, completely at ease with each other. But now," I sat down as he told me. He didn't spare me another glance, focusing solely on polishing his peachwood comb. The comb was already taking shape, just a little more sanding, and it would be ready to use. Qi Yuan didn't say a word, yet somehow, this quiet moment felt no different from the days we spent together 2 years ago. Remembering the purpose of my visit, and seeing that Qi Yuan had no intention of speaking first, I forced myself to break the silence. "Qi Yuan, will you marry me?" As soon as the words left my mouth, Qi Yuan set down his comb, turned to me, and smiled. "TSK. I seem to recall being rejected by you just a few days ago." I had no choice but to tug at his sleeve, my tone involuntarily turning coquettish. "Then, Qi Yuan, will you still marry me?" My question was answered by a searing kiss that swept over me like a storm. After a long moment, he pulled away and said, "Look at what's in front of you." I unfolded the memorial lying on the desk. It was a petition he had written to the emperor, requesting permission to marry me. I looked up at Qi Yuan, and he met my gaze. "Tanga, even if you hadn't come tonight, I would have pulled you out of this quagmire. I'm just glad you came." Yes, I came. This way. It wasn't his coercion, it was his confirmation that I cared for him too. He escorted me back to my room at the minister's mansion, waiting until I fell asleep before climbing out the window and disappearing into the night. When I woke up the next day, everything in the mansion seemed to be business as usual. Wedding preparations continued apace. Only now, the bride was Song Yunqing. The servant's attitude toward me grew even more disdainful. Pei Yu looked at the meager meal on my table, her eyes reddening with anger. "Miss, let's go back to Putty Temple. They're treating you like dirt." She was right. The food in front of me was worse than what the palace maids ate. I gently comforted her. "Trust me, Pei Yu, things will get better, I promise." I spent the entire morning painting plum blossoms in my room. Near noon, my father summoned me to the main hall. As soon as I arrived, Song Yunqing sneered, "Sorry, sister, that wonderful fiancé of yours, soon enough. You'll have to call him brother-in-law." "Oh. I almost forgot, you probably won't live long enough to see our wedding." I looked at the smug Song Yunqing and smiled coldly. An illegitimate sister who shamelessly chases after a man already betrothed to another. Anyone with a shred of dignity wouldn't dare act so boldly in front of me. My father slapped me across the face. Who gave you the right to speak to your sister like that? You useless. He raised his hand to strike me again, but a guard suddenly burst into the room. Interrupting him, Your Excellency, Eunuch Su has arrived. Everyone stood up respectfully at the announcement. After all, who would dare to disrespect the emperor's personal eunuch? To everyone's surprise, Eunuch Su had come bearing 2 imperial edicts. By the order of the emperor, let it be known, Shun Jinan of the general's mansion has used his military merits to request permission to marry Song Yunqing, the illegitimate daughter of the minister's mansion. In recognition of his service to the state and out of respect for his feelings, we hereby annul the betrothal between Shun Jinan and Song Yuntang. So decrees the emperor. Sneering glances fell upon me from all sides. My father froze, stunned. This was nothing like the story he and General Shun had presented to the emperor that morning, that I had suddenly gone mad, forcing the marriage to be changed to Song Yunqing. This edict left no room for doubt. It confirmed that Shun Jinan and Song Yunqing had carried on an illicit affair while he was still betrothed to me, not that I had lost my wits. What's the matter, Minister Song? Why haven't you accepted the emperor's decree and offered your thanks? Eunuch Su prompted. Yes, Eunuch Su, my father stammered, scrambling to his feet, but Eunuch Su held up a hand to stop him. Hold on, Minister Song. How forgetful of this old slave, there is a second edict to be read. Everyone knelt down again, holding their breath, wondering what other shocking news awaited them. By the order of the emperor, let it be known, Song Yuntang of the minister's mansion is virtuous, gentle, and intelligent. As the sole surviving descendant of General Lin, we hereby bestow upon her the honor of marrying Prince Su. The wedding shall take place on the 17th day of the 7th lunar month, so decrees the emperor. A deathly silence fell over the room. How could Song Yuntang be betrothed to Prince Su? It was impossible. Seeing that no one dared to speak, Eunuch Su smiled and said, There you have it, 2 imperial edicts, both read and delivered. Minister Song, you are truly blessed. Both your daughters have secured such excellent marriages. Your family's future is surely boundless. My father and the others rose to their feet. Taking the edicts with trembling hands, he forced a sycophantic smile. Thank you for your kind words, Eunuch Su. Eunuch Su ignored him, walking straight toward me. He pulled a jewelry box from his sleeve and said with a smile, Miss Song, this is from His Royal Highness Prince Su. He said it's just a little trinket for you to keep. I took the box and replied, Thank you, Eunuch. Eunuch Su bowed slightly to my father and me. This old slave has delivered the emperor's orders. Now, if you'll excuse me. Once Eunuch Su had disappeared from sight, my father rounded on me, his face dark with rage. What is your relationship with that Prince Su? You know full well that our family supports the second prince. By accepting this marriage, are you trying to get us all killed? At this, my illegitimate sister Song Yunqing shrieked at me, her face twisted with jealousy. How dare you marry Prince Su, Song Yuntang? How dare you? Yes, if I married Qi Yuan, everyone in this family would have to bow to me. Song Yunqing had thought that marrying Shun Jinan would make her the talk of the capital, the envy of every woman in the city. But now, I had stolen her thunder completely. She could never accept that. How dare I retorted, looking at the furious Song Yunqing with icy contempt. I dare because I am the legitimate daughter of the minister's mansion. No matter how talented you are, you will always be nothing but an illegitimate child. Even if you managed to worm your way into Prince Su's mansion, you would never be anything more than a concubine. So stay in your lane, my dear sister. My father raised his hand to hit me again, but I grabbed his wrist, smiling coldly. Father, the imperial edict has been issued. If you truly care about your career, you shouldn't be wasting your time here with me. You should be figuring out which side to take. The news that Prince Su had petitioned the emperor to marry Song Yuntang, the legitimate daughter of the minister's mansion, sent shockwaves through the capital. No one could believe it. The same woman who had been the laughingstock of the city just yesterday was now the crown princess of Su, betrothed to the most feared man in the capital. and it was he who had begged for her hand, and somehow, rumors began to circulate deliberately. I suspected that Song Yuntang had never been mad at all. It was Shun Jinan and Song Yunqing who had shamelessly carried on their affair behind her back, disregarding the sacred betrothal agreement. Overnight, their reputations were in tatters, the tide of public opinion turned completely. A legitimate daughter will always have the grace and dignity of her station. People murmured, an illegitimate child can never hope to match her, she will always be unfit for polite society. I knew exactly who was pulling the strings behind the scenes. Qi Yuan. I returned to my room and opened the jewelry box Eunuch Su had brought me. Inside lay the peachwood comb, the very same one he had been carving so carefully last night. A soft smile tugged at my lips as I placed it on my dressing table. Mother, what are we going to do? Song Yunqing wailed in Madame Kui's room, her eyes swollen with tears. The rumors are saying such terrible things about me. I stole her fiancé with so much effort, and now she's the one who's getting all the glory. Pay no mind to the gossip of commoners, my dear, Madame Kui said, pouring her a cup of tea, her voice smooth and calculating. The general's mansion may not be as prestigious as Prince Su's, but a prince's palace is never home to just one woman. All you need to do is hold on to Shun Jinan's heart. A husband's favor is a woman's greatest pride in this world. Madame Kui's eyes glinted with malice as she continued. In 10 days' time, the Empress will host her annual flower viewing banquet. Every year, she invites the female relatives of all the powerful officials in the capital, a chance to showcase their talents in poetry, music, chess, and painting. You excel at all those things. Put on a spectacular performance that day, and everyone will forget about Song Yuntang. She's nothing but a talentless fool. With one stroke, we can turn the tables on her. Patience, my child. Song Yunqing thought about it and smiled, her jealousy momentarily forgotten. You're right, mother. 3 days later, miss. Today is the flower viewing banquet. You've only just gotten engaged to Prince Su. All the noble ladies in the capital will be gunning for you. Pei Yu warned as she combed my hair. She was right. There were countless women in the capital who had dreamed of marrying Prince Su. Before, no one had dared to cross him, the fearsome living Yama. But now that I was his betrothed, they would stop at nothing to discredit me, to drive a wedge between us, even to force their way into his mansion as concubines, and more than anything else, they were consumed by envy. I know, Pei Yu, I replied, gazing at my reflection in the mirror. I was beautiful, stunningly so, but my reputation as a foolish, incompetent girl, carefully cultivated by Madame Kui over the years, had overshadowed my looks completely. Until now. I looked at the jewelry spread out on my dressing table and picked up the jade hairpin, the one Qi Yuan had given me on my coming-of-age ceremony. I handed it to Pei Yu. Use this one. The Empress's flower viewing banquet was a grand affair. Every lady in attendance was dressed in her finest silks, adorned with the most exquisite jewels. Against this backdrop, I stood out, my hair held in place by a single jade hairpin, my dress simple yet elegant. How dare she? The first to speak up was Lin Qingqian, the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister. Song Yuntang has only just gotten engaged to Prince Su, and yet she dresses so plainly for the Empress's banquet. Does she think she's too good for us all? Lin Qingqian had always been close to Song Yunqing. Now that her friend had been humiliated, she was eager to take revenge on my behalf. What's more, she had been in love with Qi Yuan for years, after hearing about our betrothal. She had begged her father to petition the emperor to let her marry Qi Yuan as his concubine, but the prime minister was a shrewd man. He was still weighing his options between the second prince and Qi Yuan, and he would never act as recklessly as his daughter. A wise bird chooses its tree carefully, and the prime minister understood that better than anyone. My father understood it too. He was desperate to pick the winning side, which was why he had originally chosen to ally with the powerful Shen family. On the surface, our family supported the second prince, but my sudden engagement to Qi Yuan had thrown all his plans into disarray. Miss Lin is dressed so beautifully, truly honoring this flower viewing banquet. I said with a playful smile, perhaps you should focus on what's worthy of your attention, rather than overstepping your bounds. You, Lin Qingqian's face turned bright red with anger. Whispers erupted among the crowd the moment I spoke. I thought Song Yuntang was a timid fool. She's nothing like the rumors say. Maybe getting engaged to Prince Su has given her courage. This future princess of yours is truly not what the rumors claim, the emperor said, sitting on his throne and glancing at Qi Yuan. That hairpin looks familiar. Yuana. Qi Yuan and the emperor watched the scene from behind a screen. The emperor had specially come today to see what kind of woman could make his beloved son go to such lengths to marry her. Father, I love her, Qi Yuan replied simply. After a while, the empress arrived at the banquet, accompanied by her concubines. Everyone knelt to pay their respects. The empress spoke. Her voice calm and dignified. The weather has warmed today, so I've invited you all to enjoy the flowers. Please make yourselves at home. Everyone chorused in response. Yes. Your Majesty. The empress scanned the crowd before her gaze settled on me. Is Song Yuntang of the minister's mansion present? I stood up immediately. This subject's daughter greets Your Majesty the Empress. The Empress smiled faintly. I see Tanga is truly beautiful. We will be family soon, no need for such formality. I smiled back at her. Thank you, Your Majesty. But proper etiquette must not be neglected. Tanga is humble and respectful, the Empress said. Yuana has truly found an excellent princess. I only wish my Anna could be so fortunate. Please sit. As I took my seat, I thought to myself, her words sounded kind, but given my reputation, she was undoubtedly mocking Qi Yuan for choosing such a fool as his wife. I had hoped the conversation would end there, but one of the women beside the Empress spoke up with a sneer. Your Majesty, the marriage hasn't been finalized yet. Whether she becomes family remains to be seen. I recognized her immediately, noble consort Xian, Lin Qingqian's maternal aunt. The Empress did not respond. Seizing the opportunity, Lin Qingqian stepped forward. Your Majesty, the weather is lovely today. My sister Yunqing is an excellent dancer. Might we ask her to perform for us? The Empress nodded approvingly. That's a wonderful idea. Enjoying flowers for too long can be tiring. I've heard Yunqing's dancing surpasses even the most renowned court dancers. What do you say, Yunqing? Song Yunqing stood up, her eyes shining with pride. Thank you for your kindness, Your Majesty. This commoner's daughter dares to show my meager skills. Song Yunqing was indeed talented. The crowd watched, enraptured by her performance. When the dance ended, the Empress clapped and praised her. Truly worthy of being called the Pearl of the Capital. Such a magnificent dance. The Shun family is fortunate to have such a daughter-in-law. You shall be rewarded. Song Yunqing knelt to thank her. Thank you, Your Majesty. She then added, Your Majesty, this daughter has an immodest request. The Empress raised an eyebrow. Speak. Song Yunqing glanced at me, and a sense of foreboding washed over me. My elder sister has been away from home for many years and only returned to the minister's mansion 2 years ago. Her reputation outside is not good. I wish to give her a chance to prove herself so that when she marries into Prince Su's mansion, no one will dare speak ill of her. I smiled inwardly. What a clever scheme. If I refused, I would be ruining the Empress's mood and confirming the rumors that I was a talentless fool. If I agreed, I would only humiliate myself if I failed. As the crowd waited eagerly to see me make a fool of myself, I stood up and curtsied to the Empress. I am deeply grateful to my younger sister for thinking of me. I beg Your Majesty to grant me this opportunity. The Empress nodded. Tanga, you need not be so formal. This is a flower viewing banquet. Such performances are encouraged. What would you like to perform? I wish to play a piece on the qin called Yearning, I said, smiling at the Empress. Excellent. A deep voice suddenly echoed through the garden. Bring me the qin yin yan. Everyone stood up and knelt as the Emperor appeared. We greet Your Majesty the Emperor. Rise, the Emperor said, taking his seat on the main throne. I hope I haven't interrupted your enjoyment, he said with a smile. Your Majesty jokes, the Empress replied, hesitating slightly. But Yin Yan was. Noble consort Yi's qin. I had Yin Yan restored, the Emperor said softly. No one has played it since Wanna passed away. Yes, Your Majesty, the Empress said, falling silent. The Emperor looked at me kindly. Young lady of the Song family, play well. Thank you, Your Majesty. I bowed deeply. I could play the qin. My mother had been famous throughout the capital for her musical talent. During the years we spent at Putty Temple, she had never neglected my education. On the contrary, my Qin skills were among my greatest talents. Amidst the crowd's skeptical glances, I began to play. Gasps of surprise filled the air, not only at the fact that I could play, but at how beautifully I played. Song Yunqing's hands clenched into fists, her eyes filled with hatred as she stared at me. When I finished, the emperor was the first to applaud. Magnificent, truly magnificent. This is the most beautiful Qin music I have heard in years. I stood up and curtsied again. Thank you for your generous praise, Your Majesty. It is only because the Qin is exquisite. The emperor nodded, his smile warm. Seeing you today, I realize the rumors are false. The legitimate daughter of the Song family is truly talented and beautiful. Thank you, Your Majesty. From now on, you may call me father, the emperor said with a chuckle. Before I could respond, he continued, I give you Yin Yan as a gift. It is fortunate for the Qin to have found its true master. I knelt down, tears of gratitude in my eyes. This subject's daughter thanks Your Majesty for your great kindness. Rise, he said, as I returned to my seat. Song Yunqing hissed at me. Are you mocking me, Song Yuntang? I smiled at her. I never said I couldn't play music, paint, or write poetry. On the contrary, I should thank you for giving me this opportunity to prove myself. After a while, the emperor left, and the empress instructed everyone to enjoy themselves before departing as well. Once the empress was gone, the crowd erupted into chatter, all centered on me. I sat quietly in my seat, drinking tea, eager for the banquet to end. News that I had dazzled the capital with my Qin skills spread like wildfire through the city. When the banquet finally concluded, Shen Jinan was waiting for Song Yunqing at the palace gate. The crowd exchanged glances, their eyes occasionally drifting to me. Jinan, what are you doing here? Song Yunqing ran toward him, her face lighting up with joy. I came to pick you up, of course, Shen Jinan replied. He had already heard about my Qin performance, and his eyes kept flicking in my direction. I ignored him, walking straight ahead. TSK, Lin Qingqian said with a sneer, her eyes fixed on me. So she's not a fool, so what? A woman's true happiness lies in having a husband who adores her with all his heart. I turned to look at her, my voice cold. Do you truly believe a woman can only survive by relying on a man? Is your self-worth so tied to whether your husband loves you? She was stunned for a moment, then retorted stubbornly. You're nothing but a discarded woman whose engagement was broken. Do you think Prince Su will truly love you? In a few days, he'll take new concubines, and you'll be nothing but a forgotten wife. Oh, you seem to know my thoughts better than I do, a deep, icy voice said. It was Qi Yuan. Everyone knelt immediately. We greet His Royal Highness Prince Su. Rise, he said, his gaze never leaving me. Your Highness, Lin Qingqian stammered, panicking at his sudden appearance. This was the first time I had seen him since that night at the tea house. He smiled when he saw the jade hairpin in my hair, walking over to me and taking my hand in his. His voice turned cold as he addressed the crowd. Since everyone is here, I will say this again. I begged the emperor to allow me to marry Yuntang. I love her. Furthermore, there will only be one princess in Prince Su's mansion. I have no intention of taking concubines, now or ever, to anyone with improper thoughts. Abandon them. If anyone dares to make Yuntang unhappy, and in doing so brings disaster upon your own family, do not say I did not warn you. Yes, Your Highness, the crowd replied, their faces filled with fear. Coming from anyone else, these words might have been dismissed as empty threats. But from Qi Yuan, known for his ruthlessness, they carried the weight of a death sentence. He had the power to destroy entire families without hesitation. Let's go, he said. Turning to me with a soft smile, I'll take you home. He did not address himself as this prince, only I. The crowd stared in shock. The gentle tone he used with me was a far cry from the menacing voice he had just used to threaten them. I nodded obediently. Okay. As we walked away, the crowd watched, their earlier envy of Song Yunqing now replaced by awe at Qi Yuan's devotion to me. We rode in silence for a long time before I spoke. Qi Yuan, this hairpin. It was my mother's, he said, lying down with his head in my lap. She left it for her future daughter-in-law. But back then, Tanga, I will only ever marry you. I fell silent. realizing now that he had planned this since my coming-of-age ceremony. "I want to go back to Putty Temple," I said, running my fingers through his hair. "Very well. Tomorrow," he replied, closing his eyes. "It's time," I reported back to Mother. I did not ask what he needed to report, I already had a feeling. The next day, Chi Yuan came to fetch me, and we set off for Putty Temple. To my surprise, my mother was already waiting for us at the gate, as if she had known we were coming. "Mother," I ran into her arms, tears streaming down my face. Over the past 2 years at the minister's mansion, I had hidden my true self, never allowing myself to show such childish vulnerability. "You're almost married, and yet you still cry like a child," my mother said, smiling as she stroked my hair. "Aren't you afraid Yuana will laugh at you?" "Mother, rest assured," Chi Yuan said, teasing us gently. "Even after we marry, I will always let Tanga be this carefree." My mother laughed and said, "Come inside." Once we were seated in her room. Facing my mother, she spoke slowly. "Over these past 2 years, my daughter has not visited as often as Yuana. He came at least once a month." "Enough teasing," she said, her tone softening. "I suppose you two haven't seen each other much these past 2 years. Now that you've finally found happiness, I can rest easy," she continued, turning to Chi Yuan. "Yuana, I entrust my daughter to you." Chi Yuan nodded solemnly. "I will cherish her, always." After chatting with my mother and having lunch, Chi Yuan and I walked to the lake where we had first heard about the imperial betrothal. I picked up a stone and skipped it across the water. I thought back to my mother's words earlier. "I never gave him the letter you wrote, but I told him, when he faces difficulties, he should remember how powerless he felt then." That was when he decided to return to the palace. The palace is a cruel place. To rise to his current position in just 2 years. He must have endured unimaginable hardships. I used to think men were unreliable, Tanga, but when it comes to Chi Yuan, I believe he truly loves you. Chi Yuan noticed I was lost in thought and pinched my cheek gently. "What's wrong, Songyun Tang? You look worried." I leaned into his arms. "Let's get married soon, Chi Yuan." He stroked my hair, smiling. "So eager to become my wife." I said nothing, just resting in his arms as we watched the sunset. I couldn't help but sigh how beautiful the sunset was, and how bright our future would be. The sun always rises in the east and sets in the west, but I know our love will never fade.